Welcome to Conspiracy Files. I'm your host, Zoe Parker, and in today's episode, we're unraveling one of the most enduring and controversial conspiracy theories of all time, the Rothschilds, a name whispered in hushed tones associated with power, wealth, and control. Some say they are the hidden architects of global finance, pulling the strings behind governments, wars, and economies. Others dismiss it as myth, exaggerated by speculation and paranoia. But why does their name continue to surface in discussions of secret influence? Is it just the story of a wealthy banking dynasty, or is there something more lurking beneath the surface? Let's find out. Stay tuned.
I didn't think the pain from the shingles rash would affect simple, everyday tasks like bathing, getting dressed, or even walking around. I was wrong. Though not everyone at risk will develop it, 99% of people over the age of 50 already have the virus that causes shingles, and it could reactivate at any time. I developed it, and the blistering rash lasted for weeks. Don't learn the hard way, like I did. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today. Sponsored by GSK.
To understand the roots of the Rothschild conspiracy theories, we need to go back to the late 18th century, a time of extraordinary transformation across Europe. It was an era defined by upheaval, revolution, and the rise of capitalism as we know it today. The old monarchies were being shaken to their core by ideas of liberty and democracy, while industrialization began reshaping economies at an unprecedented pace. In the midst of all this change was a man named Mayer Amschel Rothschild, a Jewish moneylender and coin dealer from Frankfurt. Born in 1744 in the Jewish ghetto of the city, Mayer Amschel grew up in a time when Jewish communities across Europe faced significant restrictions. They were often barred from owning land, entering certain professions, or even traveling freely. Banking and money lending were some of the few avenues available to them. Despite these challenges, Mayer Amschel possessed both ambition and a keen understanding of finance. He started building relationships with influential clients, including local royalty. His big break came when he became a court agent to Wilhelm IX, a powerful prince of Hesse-Kassel. This position gave him access to immense wealth, and more importantly, it allowed him to begin laying the groundwork for what would become one of the most successful financial empires in history. But Mayer Amschel's true genius wasn't just in accumulating wealth. It was in passing on his vision. He trained his 5 sons to follow in his footsteps, creating a decentralized but tightly connected family network. Each son was sent to establish banking operations in major European cities: Frankfurt, Vienna, Naples, Paris, and London. This strategy didn't just expand their influence. It ensured that the Rothschild family could operate across borders at a time when communication and transport were painfully slow for most. Their timing couldn't have been more perfect. Europe was entering a period of near-constant warfare, from the Napoleonic Wars to conflicts between emerging nation-states. Governments needed money, desperately, and the Rothschilds were there to provide it. They specialized in raising large sums of capital quickly, something few others could do at the time. By issuing government bonds and facilitating international loans, they became indispensable to kings, queens, and ministers alike. It was during this period that their reputation as financial giants, and, later, as shadowy figures of immense influence, began to take shape. In particular, their involvement in financing the British war effort against Napoleon cemented their position as key players in European geopolitics. Nathan Mayer Rothschild, who ran the London branch of the family business, was said to have orchestrated financial maneuvers so effective that he played a significant role in the eventual defeat of Napoleon. By the time the dust settled, the Rothschilds had not only survived the chaos, but emerged from it wealthier and more powerful than ever. Their network allowed them to move money, information, and resources faster than anyone else, a feat that, even then, seemed almost magical. And it was here, at this intersection of power, secrecy, and wealth, that the seeds of conspiracy began to take root. One of the most prominent claims tied to the Rothschild conspiracy is their alleged control over central banks across the world. Conspiracy theorists argue that the family has either directly or indirectly influenced major financial institutions for centuries. At the center of this claim is the idea that central banks, the very entities responsible for printing money and regulating economies, are secretly manipulated by the Rothschilds to maintain their wealth and power. Take, for instance, the Bank of England, one of the oldest and most influential financial institutions in the world. It's been suggested that during the Napoleonic Wars, Nathan Mayer Rothschild didn't just finance the British war effort. He allegedly used insider knowledge about the outcome of the Battle of Waterloo to execute a monumental financial coup. According to the story, Nathan deliberately spread false rumors of a British defeat, causing panic in the stock market. While others sold their holdings in a frenzy, Nathan quietly bought up stocks at a fraction of their worth. When the truth of Napoleon's defeat reached London, the value of those investments skyrocketed, supposedly granting the Rothschilds immense profits and, some argue, control over British finances. Critics of this theory argue that the story is greatly exaggerated, but it remains one of the most cited pieces of evidence by those who believe in the Rothschilds' overarching influence. Another recurring claim is that the Rothschilds orchestrated wars and conflicts to further their financial dominance. The logic behind this idea is chillingly straightforward. War requires money, and those who control the flow of money during wartime stand to profit immensely. Whether it's funding governments, supplying weapons, or rebuilding nations, war has historically been a lucrative business. Conspiracy theorists claim that the Rothschilds didn't just finance both sides in major conflicts. They actively encouraged or engineered wars to ensure their continued financial success. Beyond warfare, another major claim revolves around the establishment of the Federal Reserve in the United States in 1913. Many conspiracy theories suggest that the Rothschild family played a covert role in creating this powerful central banking system. It's said that through intermediaries and allied banking families, the Rothschilds ensured the Federal Reserve was structured in a way that would perpetually benefit their interests. For those who subscribe to these theories, it's not just about wealth, it's about power over nations. Central banks have the ability to manipulate interest rates, control inflation, and even influence government policies. If one family had even a fraction of the influence alleged by these theories, it would mean they essentially hold the reins of the global economy. These claims don't stop at finances. The Rothschild name is often invoked in broader conspiracies about global governance. The family has been linked to secret societies like the Illuminati and accused of involvement in the so-called New World Order. The argument here is that the Rothschilds don't just control money, they control the very systems that dictate how the world operates. It's a compelling narrative, a single family amassing unimaginable wealth and using it to steer the course of history. And yet these claims, as dramatic as they are, raise as many questions as they answer. For all the intrigue and speculation surrounding the Rothschild conspiracy theories, many skeptics and experts argue that these claims fall apart under closer scrutiny. One of the first things they point out is the sheer exaggeration of the family's modern-day influence. While the Rothschilds were undeniably a financial powerhouse in the 18th and 19th centuries, critics argue that their dominance has significantly waned over time. The family's wealth, though vast, is now scattered across multiple branches and generations, making the idea of a unified, all-powerful dynasty controlling the global economy increasingly implausible. Take the story of Nathan Rothschild's alleged financial coup after the Battle of Waterloo. While this tale has become one of the most famous pieces of Rothschild lore, historians often dismiss it as a myth. The timeline of events, as it's commonly presented in conspiracy circles, doesn't align with the actual historical record. Critics argue that the Rothschilds did profit from their financial acumen during the war, but there's no evidence to suggest they manipulated markets using false information. Similarly, the claim that the Rothschilds control central banks around the world is frequently challenged. Skeptics note that modern central banks are primarily government institutions, subject to oversight and regulation. While the Rothschild family may have played a role in establishing or advising early banking systems, there's little evidence to suggest they maintain control over these institutions today. It's a leap, they argue, to conflate historical influence with modern dominance. Another key critique lies in the narrative surrounding war profiteering. While it's true that the Rothschilds, like many other financiers, funded wartime governments, the idea that they engineered conflicts is seen as speculative at best. Wars are complex events driven by political, social, and economic factors, and skeptics argue it's an oversimplification to attribute these large-scale conflicts to the machinations of a single family. Critics also point out the lack of concrete evidence supporting these theories. Much of the proof relies on anecdotes, rumors, or unverifiable claims. For example, the alleged connection between the Rothschilds and secret societies like the Illuminati is often based on vague associations rather than documented facts. Skeptics argue that the very vagueness of these claims is what allows them to persist, because they're difficult to disprove. They linger in the public imagination. There's also the issue of motive. While the Rothschilds undoubtedly benefited from their wealth and influence, critics question why a family that already amassed so much would go to extraordinary lengths to maintain control over the global economy. After all, the risks of exposure and backlash would be enormous. Finally, skeptics emphasize that the Rothschild conspiracy theories often draw on anti-Semitic tropes, casting Jewish financial success as inherently suspicious or malevolent. This, they argue, taints the narrative and raises uncomfortable questions about the motivations behind the theories themselves. As compelling as these rebuttals are, they don't necessarily erase the suspicions held by many. The absence of evidence, for some, is just further proof of how effective the Rothschilds are at keeping their secrets. Whether or not the Rothschild conspiracy theories hold any truth, one thing is undeniable. They've left a lasting impact on culture, politics, and society. The very endurance of these theories speaks to something deeper, a collective need to make sense of the world, especially in times of uncertainty. One of the most striking aspects of these theories is how they reflect anxieties about power and wealth. For centuries, people have struggled with the idea that a small, elite group might control the destinies of entire nations. The Rothschild family, with their immense historical influence and legendary wealth, became the perfect symbol for these fears. In a world where economic systems often feel opaque and uncontrollable, conspiracy theories about shadowy figures pulling the strings offer a way to externalize that frustration. This narrative resonates particularly strongly during periods of financial instability. When economies falter, people search for someone or something to blame. The idea of a secret cabal manipulating markets or orchestrating crises provides a simple explanation for incredibly complex phenomena. It's easier to point to a powerful family as the culprit than to untangle the web of policies, decisions, and global events that lead to economic hardship. But the implications go beyond economics. Politically, these theories have been used to stoke division and distrust. By suggesting that unseen forces control governments and global institutions, they undermine public faith in democratic systems. This kind of thinking can be incredibly destabilizing, especially when it gains traction among influential groups or political movements. At the same time, the Rothschild conspiracy theories reveal something about the human psyche, our natural inclination towards storytelling. The narrative of a wealthy, secretive family controlling the world is compelling because it ties together disparate events into a single, cohesive explanation. It gives people a sense of clarity in a chaotic world, even if that clarity is based on speculation. Culturally, these theories have also had a profound impact on media and entertainment. The idea of shadowy elites orchestrating global events has inspired countless books, films, and television shows. From thrillers about secret societies to dystopian tales of economic manipulation, the themes of power and secrecy resonate deeply with audiences. These cultural depictions, in turn, reinforce and perpetuate the conspiracy theories, creating a feedback loop that keeps them alive. However, the darker side of this cultural impact can't be ignored. These theories have often been used as a vehicle for prejudice, particularly anti-Semitism. By casting the Rothschilds, a Jewish family, as the villains in a global narrative, these conspiracies tap into and amplify harmful stereotypes. This has real-world consequences, fueling hatred and division in ways that ripple across generations. At their core, the Rothschild conspiracy theories serve as a kind of mirror, reflecting the fears, frustrations, and insecurities of the societies that embrace them. They tell us less about the family itself and more about the people who believe in these narratives. Why do these stories endure? Because they speak to something primal, the need to find meaning in the chaos, to identify villains in a world where the forces shaping our lives often feel invisible and unaccountable.
Not all meals are created equal. For instance, breakfast has the spicy egg McMuffin for a limited time, and lunch doesn't. McDonald's breakfast comes first. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. When you visit the doctor, you probably hand over your insurance, your ID, and contact details. It's just one of the many places that has your personal info. And if any of them accidentally expose it, you could be at risk for identity theft. LifeLock monitors millions of data points a second. If you become a victim, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year at lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
As with any enduring conspiracy theory, the Rothschild narrative has spun off into a variety of speculative and fringe angles, some of which delve far beyond the bounds of conventional reasoning. These ideas amplify the mystery and elevate the Rothschilds from powerful financiers to something almost mythical, figures operating on a plane that transcends the everyday understanding of power and influence. One of the most fringe theories ties the Rothschild family to extraterrestrial entities. In this version of the story, the Rothschilds are not merely wealthy elites, but intermediaries working on behalf of alien civilizations. These theories suggest that their staggering wealth and influence are not of human origin, but rather bestowed upon them by beings seeking to manipulate humanity. The claims become even wilder, alleging that this alien connection allows the Rothschilds to possess advanced knowledge, whether it's hidden technologies, energy systems, or even control over time itself. Closely linked to this is the idea of the Rothschilds as key players in the pursuit of a one-world government, often referred to as the New World Order. Here, the family is cast as architects of a global system where nations dissolve, borders vanish, and a single governing body rules over humanity. Proponents of this theory point to their involvement in international institutions and their supposed connection to shadowy groups like the Illuminati. According to this perspective, every move they've made throughout history has been a calculated step toward consolidating power on a global scale. There are also whispers of the Rothschilds' influence extending into the realm of the occult. Some claim the family has ties to ancient, secretive practices and rituals, suggesting they draw their power not only from money, but from esoteric knowledge passed down through generations. In these theories, the Rothschilds are depicted as keepers of secrets that date back to ancient civilizations, perhaps even to the earliest days of human history. This angle portrays them as more than bankers or politicians. They become almost mystical figures, wielding power that borders on the supernatural. Another speculative thread involves the control of resources beyond mere money. Some theorists allege that the Rothschilds have monopolized essential natural resources, most notably water supplies. In this telling, their influence extends beyond banking and finance to include dominion over the very elements that sustain life. This idea taps into deeper fears about scarcity and dependency, painting a picture of a world where even the most basic necessities are subject to the will of an unseen elite. And then, there's the notion that the Rothschilds are masters of a global deception so sophisticated that most people cannot even comprehend its scope. In this view, every significant political and economic event is part of a carefully orchestrated plan, a grand chess game where entire populations are pawns. Even theories that might seem unrelated, from weather manipulation to the suppression of free energy technologies, are, in some versions, attributed to the Rothschilds as part of their all-encompassing control. These speculative ideas, as far-fetched as they might seem, feed into the larger narrative of the Rothschilds as enigmatic figures whose power defies explanation. They amplify the sense of mystery, painting the family as something more than human, a symbol of ultimate control, secrecy, and intrigue. As we delve further into the web of conspiracy surrounding the Rothschilds, we find ourselves at the intersection of influence and perception, how these theories evolve over time and become self-perpetuating phenomena. This is where the idea of a conspiracy feedback loop emerges, a concept that explains how these narratives gain traction and sustain themselves through a combination of belief, repetition, and amplification. The Rothschild conspiracy theories aren't static. They adapt, morphing to fit the concerns of each era. In the 19th century, the theories painted the Rothschilds as the masterminds behind European wars. By the 20th century, they became woven into Cold War anxieties, with whispers that their power transcended the ideological divide between capitalism and communism. Now, in the digital age, these theories have exploded into countless variations, from their alleged ties to global financial institutions to their supposed role in orchestrating events as diverse as climate change and cryptocurrency booms. This adaptability stems from one simple factor: the absence of tangible resolution. Because these theories are inherently unverifiable or based on evidence that is difficult to confirm or refute, they thrive in an environment of ambiguity. Each new world event, financial upheaval, or political shift becomes fuel for the fire, with the Rothschilds cast as the invisible architects behind the scenes. This cyclical nature of suspicion creates a self-sustaining narrative, where lack of evidence is interpreted not as disproof, but as further proof of the family's skill at maintaining secrecy. Adding to this dynamic is the phenomenon of online amplification. In the digital space, where conspiracy theories flourish, algorithms prioritize content that evokes strong emotional reactions. The more outrageous or captivating the claim, the further it spreads. This has allowed niche ideas to reach global audiences, turning a handful of whispers into a deafening roar. Platforms like social media, blogs, and forums have become the modern-day campfires around which these stories are told, retold, and embellished, creating a sense of community among believers and reinforcing the illusion of credibility. The result is an evolving ecosystem of belief, where each new iteration of the theory builds upon the last, creating an ever-deepening labyrinth of claims. Even fringe variations, like the Rothschilds' alleged control of scientific discoveries or manipulation of technological advancements, find a foothold in this environment, merging seamlessly into the broader narrative. For many, the mere existence of so many interconnected claims is seen as evidence in itself, an overwhelming mosaic that seems too intricate to be a coincidence. This feedback loop not only sustains the theories, but also inoculates them against criticism. Doubts and contradictions are often reframed as intentional distractions, further proof of a cover-up. Theories that could otherwise be dismissed as speculative take on an air of invincibility, bolstered by a belief system that is simultaneously flexible and impervious to outside scrutiny. It's this evolving nature of conspiracy theories that ensures their survival. They're not just stories about the Rothschilds or any other target. They're stories about how we process uncertainty, how we seek control in the face of chaos, and how our minds instinctively search for patterns, even when none may exist. As we close the file on tonight's exploration, one thing becomes clear. The Rothschild conspiracy theories are about far more than just one family. They are a lens through which people examine their fears of power, inequality, and control. Whether these theories hold a kernel of truth or exist as elaborate fabrications, their endurance tells us something vital about how we process a world that often feels overwhelming and unpredictable. These stories thrive because they provide clarity where none seems to exist, creating a vivid tapestry of villains, hidden agendas, and grand designs. They offer a simple answer to complex questions, a way to explain global upheaval, economic disparities, and the relentless churn of political change. And yet, they also reveal something darker: the ease with which these narratives can blur the line between truth and fiction, between skepticism and outright paranoia. The allure of these theories lies in their drama, in their sense of mystery and intrigue, but they also have the power to divide and distort. As we've seen, the Rothschilds have been cast as both symbols of unaccountable power and targets of deeply harmful prejudice. This duality makes their story both fascinating and fraught, a mirror reflecting our collective anxieties and the consequences of unchecked suspicion. But there's a bigger story here, one that transcends the Rothschilds or any single conspiracy. It's about how information is shared and how narratives take on a life of their own in an age where every click, every like, every share can amplify an idea into something unstoppable. The Rothschild conspiracy theories are an old story, but the way they've evolved and expanded across the digital landscape shows us how modern media can turn whispers into roars. Which brings us to a critical question. How does the media, the supposed gatekeeper of truth, shape the very reality we perceive? If conspiracy theories rely on a distorted narrative, then what role does the media play in framing those distortions? Are we being informed or manipulated? In our next episode, we'll explore how the media, whether intentionally or inadvertently, molds our perception of reality. From subtle biases to overt agendas, we'll uncover the techniques that keep us hooked, distracted, and perhaps misled. For tonight, though, we leave the Rothschilds behind, but not the questions they represent. Who holds the power? How much of what we see is real, and how much is shaped by unseen forces? Whether they're individuals, institutions, or the very systems we rely on. These are the questions that keep us searching, questioning, and looking just a little deeper. Thanks for tuning in to the Conspiracy Files podcast. We're here with brand new episodes every Wednesday. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, don't forget to follow us and be sure to rate, review, and share your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. You can also reach out anytime by emailing us at contact@theconspiracyfilespodcast.com. Until next time, and remember, the truth is out there. If you enjoyed this episode and want to dive deeper into the world of conspiracy theories, consider subscribing for exclusive access to the material they don't want you to hear. As a subscriber, you'll get banned episodes, episodes deemed too controversial for mainstream platforms, members-only bonus episodes, not available anywhere else, extended director's cut versions of your favorite episodes, early access to new content before it's released to the public, and much more. Thank you for your support. The link is in the description below. Join now.